This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursdays. We welcome you into Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. For those of you who were excited about the potential of me not being here today, did not end up having to go to jury duty this morning, so you're stuck with me for another 2 hours.
I mean, I'm just happy because I was not really looking forward to carrying the show. I mean, I guess it's an everyday occurrence, but not looking forward to it. Happy you're here.
I also classed it up today. Multiple people, yourself included, judging my sweater. Tried to be more grown up today. Is that okay for you?
I mean, I guess I didn't even realize what you were wearing until you just pointed it out. So sure.
Dang it.
Looks absolutely fantastic. Why not? There's buttons on it. I am a big proponent of buttons, and I don't think there's really any argument whatsoever. The fancier the shirt, the more the buttons there are.
I didn't know that was a thing. I know on like a tuxedo, that's important,
Yep.
right? The little silver button things. What are they called? Don't they have a special name?
Do I look like I wear
I don't
tuxedos? The last tuxedo
you're
I
right.
wore was for the opening of this property in like 2021.
You have a very elegant quarter zip on today, though. That said, we do
I
have
went with the white button. No, I went with the white,
more buttons. Yeah, that's true. Buttons underneath the zipper.
Buttons
So
on
I
buttons.
don't know how that.
Hey, dog, I heard you like
works
buttons, so I put buttons on your
in
buttons.
terms of class. Let's set the table with everything that is to come over the course of the next 2 hours. Time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
Let's get it going. We're going to continue our Play Ball MLB preview series today. Deep dive on the Texas Rangers. We're also going to have former MLB catcher, Sirius XM MLB radio host Chris Jimenez join the program, who coincidentally, former Ranger for a time as well.
Yeah, looking forward to talking to him because Rangers, a team I am very high on in the American League West, in the American League as well. A couple of teams that we have discussed, the Royals have been one of them, but the Rangers, I think, are also one of those long shots you could look at in the American League to potentially make some noise. Pitching staff, fantastic. Question last year was the lineup, never came to fruition. I got burned. I bet them to win the AL West, win the American League a couple of times, but I think that this might be the year we get it back.
Yeah, that'll be a good conversation. Also talk a little World Baseball Classic with him. Just 20 days out now officially from opening day. While we have to wait on that, we do not have to wait for conference tournament action anymore. A handful of them already underway. A few more beginning today. First round games in the West Coast, Missouri Valley, the MAC, the Metro Atlantic MAC. And we're continuing to cast a net with our Circa College Hoops Challenge contestants. Two more of them on deck today. Tim Murray as well as Greg Peterson in his usual weekly spot. And I am excited to talk to Tim as well, specifically about the Mountain West, because I know, like us, that is a conference he follows a lot, and New Mexico's loss yesterday just makes this league even worse.
Yeah, the Missouri Valley Conference unders, a lot of people talk about them. Interesting conversation to be had. Large sample size tells you that's all it does is go under the total. Is there a point where you start to bet these over? We will see.
Yeah, I mean, last year, too, and this is something I really wanted to talk with Greg about, because I know he has a couple plays in the MVC today, that last year, all of the talk was, has the market finally caught up? And then they just went 10-1 to the under once again. So we'll see how that plays out beginning today. And we will start in the National Basketball Association. It was a masterpiece at MSG last night, albeit not for the hometown Knicks, as the title favorite OKC Thunder hold them off 103-100 for what is now JVT, the Thunder's 8th straight win at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks did fight. They were down 57-42 in the third quarter, come roaring all the way back, end up taking a lead early in the fourth quarter. Some questionable calls or no calls as well, depending on how you want to look at it. But Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby both had a couple opportunities late before the buzzer, got a couple shots off, not great looks, couldn't go down, however, and OKC gets the win.
Yep. I mean, this is a Thunder team that has been very resilient. They've been very good on both ends, but the defense has carried them through almost every step of the way. Last night in non-garbage time, an offensive rating for the Knicks of just 102. That's a very poor offensive rating, if you were wondering at home. Didn't really turn the ball over a ton, but just had a hard time getting past this perimeter defense. So OKC was wildly impressive, especially when they got to set their defense against them. Offensive rating in the half court for the Knicks was 75.6. That's also atrocious. Really, the only time they generated any sort of offense was through transition, and specifically off of some of the steals that they were able to get and go the other way. I don't think it's a surprise. Zach Cohen and I talked about this today on
Hardwood Handicappers?
Yeah, Hardwood Handicappers. I'm on so many. Where I think you look at the Knicks and you squarely put them in about that. You and I actually talked about yesterday too. You squarely put them in that 4 or 5 range in the East. And if you remember, we only talked about maybe 4, because I think after last night, we might have a new contender for a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. And I think they might be closer to 1 than they are to 4 or 5.
Who?
The Charlotte Hornets.
Let's go. Who get the dub yesterday against the Boston Celtics? And let's dive into it, because this was a position that even you
Yeah.
took the position against them last night. You thought, okay, Boston, you tried to pick your moments when to fade the Charlotte Hornets team. Regardless, I don't think anybody would have seen it playing out this way. Even if you thought this was a close game, whatever, Charlotte could be competitive. Nobody thought this was going to be a 118-89 blowout in Boston.
So there's so much to go over here with this Charlotte group, but let's hit a couple of the numbers. They're now 9-0 against the spread in their last 9 games. They are 13-1 against the spread over the last 14 contests. They have won 6 straight games by 15-plus points, the longest streak by any team since the 2017-2018 Warriors, tied for the second longest streak in NBA history, 7 road wins by 25-plus points this season, tied for second most in a single season in NBA history, and breaking a tie with the Thunder for the most this season. Mm-hmm. So they have been, they're setting records or tying records. They have been phenomenal. If you look at what this team has been with their starting 5 after yesterday, they improved to 20-2. When they start LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, Brandon Williams, Miles Bridges, Moussa Diabate. That starting 5 has a plus 31.2 net rating, meaning they outscore opponents by 31.2 points every 100 possessions. Offensive rating of 137.3 with those 5 out there on the floor. If you look at this team from a point differential standpoint, cleaning the glass is a great metric where they take your net rating. How many wins would you have if you had this net rating for the season? Your expected win percentage or expected wins over 82. The Hornets would be at 50.1 wins over the course of 82. Why are we, and this was a point that we had brought up, Zach and I, if you can go listen to it on Hornet Handicappers, why should we be afraid now to just sit here and say, 25-1 in the Eastern Conference looks relatively weak. Why can't they compete for the Eastern Conference title? Given this large and growing sample size of absolute statistical dominance that we're seeing, and it's on both ends. Yeah. If you look at Cleveland, for example, and I love Cleveland, and to me, that is still the number 1 team. The thing that sticks out about Cleveland is when you have Donovan Mitchell and James Harden on the floor together, and albeit a small sample size, their defensive rating sticks out like a sore thumb. They've been outscoring opponents by large margins, but their defense still has a small issue. We'll see if they can work that out. When you look at Charlotte, they're elite on both ends. We talked about their defensive rating last night with their starting 5. They're deep. Kobe White comes in. He plays his 3rd game for them yesterday. Absolutely tremendous. He's plus 17 in just around 20 minutes. They've added at the perfect time in terms of what their pieces look like. The non-LaMelo Ball minutes, because they didn't really have a point guard to run the offense, were kind of poor. Now they have Kobe White to do that for them. In an Eastern Conference, I'll ask you this. In a series, it's Knicks and Hornets. Who would you take?
Yeah, the way that they're playing right now, I do give a lean to Charlotte, and I don't understand how you can't, especially now. Go ahead.
I'll continue. Celtics and Hornets. Who would you take?
I don't know. We haven't seen with Jason Tatum back.
Right, but the whole point here is there a team?
But then it's a question now, all of a sudden.
Is there a team that you would look at in the Eastern Conference and say, Charlotte has no shot against that team in a best of 7?
I would say they have a shot against anybody.
Yes.
They can win games in any of those series. Yeah. Yes, I agree with that.
So
25-1, 100-1 to win it all, baby. Throw that out there.
Let's focus on the East first.
But I'm just saying, you look at the playoff numbers where, and credit you for the forward thinking you had for some of those numbers that we were able to get, like a month or so ago, whether it was to make the playoffs or to be in the play-in. Now the playoff numbers, Charlotte minus 270 on the yes. They're minus 340 for the play-in.
We might lose the play-in bet, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Because it might be a top 6 team.
But what was the playoff number? Like 12-1, 14-1 in that range?
Yep.
And now, and I know it's crazy we're talking about this team in this capacity when they're only a 32-31 team. However, you gave the stats from the last 9 and last 14 games. This really goes back to nearly the last 20 since January 22nd, 16-3 straight up, 15-4 against the number, which is the best record in the NBA in that span after what was such a bad start. They were 16-28 to get underway. This is the first time actually beyond 5 games of a season that they're over 500 since 2021-22.
Yep.
So what they're doing is exceptional for what we've seen in the recent franchise history, and it doesn't look fake. And I think that's what's most impressive about this team. And I want to give you a lot of credit, and Kelly Bidlin as well, for that. Just the season win total from the bat, believing that this team could be better than the market indicated, and obviously now significantly better with that lineup and all those numbers you gave out.
Yeah, and if you're sitting here wondering, well, whatever, maybe it's a flash in the pan, they're really not that good. One thing we like to bring up here on the show, we do it a lot when we talk about the Lakers, is how the Lakers perform against teams with the top 10 net rating. So how do you perform against the best in the league? The Charlotte Hornets are 10th in net rating against top 10 teams so far this year. Now, it's a minus net rating. It's minus 3.2. They're 6-11, but they are 5th in defensive efficiency against teams with the top 10 net rating so far this year. So they're still delivering on defense. It's their offense that has struggled in some of these matchups with some of the big boys, but they are starting to improve now here as we are seeing it. So they can go toe-to-toe with almost anybody. And even then, against these teams, you see the strengths, by the way. For example, against top 10 teams in net ratings, they're actually third in offensive rebounding rate. So they're generating second chance opportunities. One of the best defensive teams. So if you're kind of guffawing at the fact, you're like, get out of here. Like, there's no shot that this team can actually make a run. The East is relatively soft. This team, statistically, if I removed every single label and just showed you, hey, what would you think of this team compared to this team? More often than not, you're picking Charlotte out of the hat. And I think that that's something that we have to kind of come around to a little bit more.
And I think, again,
and it's not just because I was texting your husband last night.
As evidenced by the win last night in Boston, what they've been able to do on the road, I think, too, very impressive during that stretch. Now, we mentioned the other side of this for the Celtics, what this will look like when Jason Tatum comes back. We did get the news this morning from Sean Sharania that there is an expectation Tatum will make his debut at the Garden against Dallas coming up on Friday. He did give the caveat that Tatum has been described as ready to go, but will inform the Celtics of a final decision over the next day.
Yeah. And this is what we're expecting. This is what we're waiting for. I wouldn't expect 30 points and whatever, in the first game back. It's a slow rollout. This is all about getting him ready for what you're going to see by the time we get to the middle of April.
Okay. We got to step aside, take our first time out of the day here, but we are just getting started on Money Moves. Plenty more NBA in a bit. We'll preview the full 9-game card. Also, another wrinkle to the most improved market potentially based on a result we saw last night. So we will hit on all of that. But coming up, VSiN's own Greg Peterson going to join the program, talk a little college basketball, those Missouri Valley unders, lots of conference tournaments getting underway today and more. Stick around. Money Moves after this.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Happy Arch Madness to those who celebrate the Missouri Valley, one of a handful of tournaments tipping off today as conference tournaments are underway. Remember, VSiN is offering our Hoops Mania special right now, where you can get VSiN Pro access to everything we do here at the network through May 1st for just $29.99. With VSiN Pro, you get the daily best bets from all of our show hosts and guests, real-time bet splits from DraftKings and Circa, AI-powered prop tools, matchup analysis, 24/7 video, full show replays, and so much more, including the March Mania betting guide that will have team profiles and breakdowns for every tournament team, key trends for each round, expert bracket and future strategies, and more from our VSiN top analysts. If you're betting the tournament, this is a must. Sign up today at vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. You'll also get unlimited access to all of Greg Peterson's articles and content up at the website as well. Greg joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Of course, the host of Coast to Coast Hoops and Podcast Forum, one of the many contestants in the Circa College Hoops Challenge going on right now. And I mentioned Arch Madness off the top because I do want to jump right into the Missouri Valley. It has been a trend going on for the last couple of years. Missouri Valley unders. JVT and I brought it up in the first segment. Even last season, everybody said, okay, the market's going to adjust even round by round. 10-1 to the under again. Should we be expecting more low-scoring games in the MVC?
If we were getting the openers that I saw, yes, but these numbers have been driven way, way, way down. Like, I was taking a look at that Southern Illinois game, the game that is going to be coming up first, and I personally did lay 4.5 points with Southern Illinois in this game, but that total opened up at about a 143. Last I was seeing, it was down all the way to a 134.5. That's an 8+ point line move. I feel like now we're perhaps going a little bit too far. And here's what you want to note in the Missouri Valley Conference, because it feels like you just mentioned it. The unders, they are always so good. A big reason why is because it feels like, I don't know if it's the sight line, I don't know if it's the rims that they use, but three-point shooting just goes into the abyss when it comes to the Enterprise Center. You want to be trusting in teams that pile drive the ball down low. Southern Illinois is a team that is in the top 15 in all of college basketball with regards to percentage of their shots that come from 2-point range. And this is sort of a perfect storm for the over because you do have a line that's right now 4.5, 5 points. If you think that it's going to be landing pretty close to that line, let's say that one of these teams is down 5 points with a minute remaining, you know that you're going to be getting a lot of fouls. You're going to be getting a lot of free throws at the end of the game. That helps out to the over. And what else helps out to the over is the fact that Drake is about 280th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. So I actually did take a few overs in Arch Madness today, and that goes against what I've done the last few years where I've been pretty much playing exclusively unders in this conference tournament.
Who do you like to win the MVC?
Whew, that is a tough one. I think that you'd be hard-pressed to go up against Belmont, but at the same time with Belmont, even though they're such a great three-point shooting team, it's hard to trust in them in late games as well because they shoot less than 69% of the free throw line. They've got a defense that travels really, really well, and Tyler Lundblade is one of the best shooters that nobody's ever heard of. I hope you've heard of them, but a lot of people have not. He does a really awesome job. I do think that Belmont has a good chance to be able to win this conference tournament, but this is one of those conference tournaments. Like the MVC is one of them. The Atlantic 10 is one of them where it feels like you could put like 5 or 6 names in a hat, pull it out, and be like, oh, this is the team that won it. It's like, oh, sounds good to me. So I go with Belmont, but this is one where I did not really advise any futures because I could see some craziness ensuing in this tournament.
For context for our audience, Stormy, Belmont plus 155, Northern Iowa plus 475, Illinois State 5-1, Bradley plus 750, and Illinois Chicago, the Flames, plus 850. Then you get to the double digits. Stormy tried to quiz me on the UIC mascot a few weeks back, and I nailed it. She had no faith in it.
With flying colors.
Yep.
That said, I will say the past 3 Missouri Valley title games, we have seen each of the top 2 seeds playing in it. The lowest seed to ever win the event was a 5. So this is one of those tournaments that at least favors the upper echelon of the conference. We'll see how that plays out when all is said and done. What other conference tournaments have you really excited this week? Obviously, a lot of them already underway or tipping off today.
Oh, I am jazzed up for the Patriot League tournament because I very much want Navy to be able to make the NCAA tournament. Navy returned 92% of their minutes from a season ago. No other team in college basketball returned more than 85% of their minutes. Keep in mind, the biggest step-up game that Navy had this season was against North Carolina. They held within 12 points in that game. Like, that's a team that legitimately, as a 14 seed, could be able to give a scare to a 3 seed. They're a team that has built a grown men because they've all been playing with one another for a very, very long time. So that's a conference tournament that I absolutely love. The Atlantic Sun has just been nice to me all season long. We got a nice win yesterday with the West Georgia Wolves. We're going to be seeing them in action over the weekend. So that's a fun one. The Horizon League, you never know what you're going to be getting there. You saw Oakland go down yesterday. So that's another fun one. And then the Summit League tournament, I think, is going to be very interesting today. You've got a team in St. Thomas that has come up from the D3 ranks. This is their first year of NCAA tournament eligibility. They're going to be trying to make a run, but you've got the number 1 seed in North Dakota State who's looking to avenge the loss that they took to St. Thomas last week as well. So lots of great conference tournaments. It's like trying to pick your favorite child over here. I love all these conference tournaments.
All right, let's go to the MAC out there at the Boardwalk in AC because Sacred Heart and Iona are going to go at it coming up at 3 o'clock. The market, I believe, has moved in your direction here, Greg. Open 3, it's up to 4.5. Totals down to 148.5. What do you like here? Is it still playable at that 4.5 range?
It is still playable at 4.5. I was able to say this at 2.5 personally. I'd be willing to lay up to 5. So we're starting to run out of real estate, but you still have some value here at minus 4.5 with Iona. This just feels like a bad matchup for Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart takes over 50% of their field goal attempts from 3-point range. That is a top 20 mark in all of college basketball in terms of percentage. Guess what Iona does well? Top 25 team in opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. And for Iona, the way that you beat this team is down low on the boards. Sacred Heart is one of those teams that's well outside the top 200 in terms of their own rebound percentage. Iona, solid, not necessarily amazing with their 3-point shooting, but Sacred Heart has been very leaky on defense as well. They're outside the top 285 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. CJ Anthony, a 14-point per game scorer for Iona, began his career over at Cincinnati. I think that he's the best player out there on the floor in this game as well. You've got Lamine Salaby, who's able to give you 8+ rebounds per game with Iona. I think that they do a nice job guarding the arc against a Sacred Heart team that is very much looking to go bombs away from 3-point range. So I was willing to lay with Iona. And with all the 3-point shots that you're going to get in this game, these are 2 of the more up-tempo teams in the Metro Atlantic. I'm seeing that total 148.5. Like that over as well.
In addition to a lot of these lower level conference tournaments that are underway, we do still have a couple of big dogs trying to close out the regular season with a couple more games to go. And both Michigan and Michigan State in action today. We have Michigan at Iowa and Rutgers at Michigan State. Either one of those games you have a firm opinion on tonight?
I've got an opinion on both of these games. I did not have my write-up for Iowa, but now that they've gotten to 9.5 point underdogs, I do like that value here. Even at an 8.5, I think that you've got some value. With Michigan, they just haven't necessarily looked right the last few weeks, even though they knocked off Minnesota last week. That was a game where they were very far from covering that spread. Carver Hawkeye Arena, I think, is one of the more underrated home court environments in all of college basketball. Iowa does a good job in terms of doing the little things well. They're also 365th out of 365 Division I teams in terms of total possessions per game. So I do like Iowa catching 8.5 there. And then in Michigan versus Michigan State, I took the under. You just don't mess with it here. You've got a Michigan State team that's been so good on defense. They're 26th in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Teams only grab 19.9% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is number one in the country. And Rutgers is not executing down low. They're overall 262nd in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, outside the top 300 with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage. Two slow teams. Rutgers 270th in terms of total possessions per game. Michigan State more around 285th. So I'd be willing to lay up to 20 with Michigan State. That number's at 19.5, but that total of 142.5, think that you've got great value on the under.
All right, nightcap tonight that I'm curious about because we've seen a pretty decent move on the total. San Diego and Loyola Marymount out here at the Orleans Arena, Greg, in the West Coast Conference. 6.5 of the open, now 5.5, but the total's down 3 points to 145.5. What do you see here?
Yep, I took the under when this was 148.5. Still think you've got value on 145.5. Wouldn't want to go below a 145. So you want to get a 145 or better, in my opinion, here, but with San Diego, this is just not the same team that they were at the beginning part of the season. Tyler Johnson, their top scorer with about 14 points per game, he decided that he's just going to be entering into the transfer portal after you saw Steve Lavin, the coach. He was ousted a few weeks ago as well. So this is a completely different San Diego team and a Loyola Marymount team that just hasn't executed on offense. They're outside the top 225 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. They're outside the top 225 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. And that's the one saving grace for San Diego. They've been a top 45 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. I am willing to lay with Loyola Marymount at the 5.5, mainly because, again, you've got a San Diego team that's disjointed. And San Diego, 344th in the country in terms of rebound percentage. They are getting absolutely destroyed down low, outside the top 300 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, as well. Loyola Marymount, top 75 with that regard. So I do think that Loyola Marymount wins from within. Willing to lay the 5.5, and that total of 145.5. Too much lower, but I still like that under.
Yeah, that is a conference of the haves and the have-nots. We know Gonzaga and St. Mary's already cemented in the semifinals, the way that they separate that out in the bracket. Greg, you're awesome. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Always appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Greg Hoops Peterson, follow him on X as well at gunit_81. And again, the article, the write-ups with all of his plays for the day up at vsin.com right now. We got to step aside, but when we come back to the NBA, fading the tanking teams in the NBA has been a profitable angle recently. Should we go down that road again tonight with a 9-game card? JVT will tell you why or why not. Plus, why is Trae Young playing tonight, especially given the Wizards' next two opponents? What's going on there? We'll get to it all. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Here on Money Moves, this segment of the program sponsored by Upside. You can download the free Upside app today and earn real cash back every time you fill up your gas tank. Promo code SPORTS will also get you 25 cents back per gallon on that first tank. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Speaking of tanks, tanking teams in the NBA, very profitable to fade lately. Although the 76ers did make it interesting yesterday. With that in mind, though, before we get into some of the angles on today's 9-game card, I know there was a futures angle that you wanted to hit on coming out of that game because our boy Keontae George's back in action.
You hear that? That's the heartbeat, baby. We're back. We're alive. 2 consecutive 30-point games for our boy Keontae George since he has returned to the lineup. We're averaging 27.7. And here's the best part. So I told this to Zach today, and this is why we have live. First off, media members with a pulse actually understand how many improvements he's made to his game. So he is still alive to win this award. What's really going to start to help, I think, Stormy? Since they are tanking and they have all of these injuries with all these missing pieces. You look at yesterday, he goes 10 to 24 from the floor. I think going forward, they're just going to let him chuck.
Lose.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But they're going to let him chuck. They're going to say, Keontae, work on your game here over the last 18, 19 games. We don't care. Yesterday's a good example. He had 36, 2, or what did he have? He had a really muted stat line in terms of rebounds and assists.
Four rebounds, 2 assists.
Right. So he had 36, 4, and 4. Right? This guy is going to be able to come out here and just chuck. He's going to have the highest usage rate on the team outside of some of these other pieces like Ace Bailey, who they're going to let grow. So he had 30. I said 36. That was the previous game. He had 34 and 4 on 10 of 24 shooting. So the whole point here is what was it? 2 weeks ago. I was in a bad mood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just, I got a lot going on. And so I was like, oh, Keontae George, he's dead. No, we're alive. I refuse. I am back on the bus. It does not matter. I will not be deterred. Keontae George is the most improved player in the NBA, and we will have new life here as he will, I think, dominate their usage as we move forward. Now play this back when tomorrow we get the news that he is done for the rest of the year.
Hit me with the heartbeat again.
Wait, hold on. I can't do it. I'm too excited.
Not a pressure player. No, I love the argument. And so what's his number now? Around 18 to 1. We bet it at 14 to 1, I want to say, and it was kind of sitting in that range for a long time. The odds went back out, though, with him not being in the lineup. Now I think 18 to 1 is where we're at.
Yes, 18 to 1. Now, the question obviously becomes, is it playable right now? Again, as somebody who is, like you've said, I've betted at different numbers here. I've got a 8, I've got a 20, I've got a little bit shorter than 18 as well. I've kind of doubled up on them. I would say yes. Again, I have faith.
Okay.
When we talk to Zach Cohen tomorrow, you'll find somebody who actually has more faith and is actually very angry about the topic, much like I am at times. So I think that, yes, it is still worth adding if you have not gotten in. He will be back, I promise you, and he is going to have a better shot at this. By the way, as we're talking, Wizards announced, just worth noting, that Anthony Davis will be out at least 2 more weeks, as we know that Trae Young is going to make his debut tonight against the Utah Jazz. It all works together.
Yes, and so I would like to talk about that a little bit because the Wizards have this game. Who do they play next? Because I was looking at their schedule earlier, and it's eluding me right now who they have next on their schedule. But it's another one of those bad teams.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if you're
New Orleans.
Yeah. So if you're in the Washington Wizards spot right now, why are you having him play games and get in the fold when you're playing other bad teams right now? That doesn't really make any sense to me.
Well, especially when your goal has very clearly been to lose games.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So for those who are not understanding what Stormy's referring to here, Washington and Utah are currently, if we flip the standings, 4th and 5th in terms of pecking order for the top pick in the NBA draft. So should Washington win this game, you're going to allow Utah to gain a game on you essentially
so dumb.
In the running for a pick. Why that matters too is, of course, Washington control the 4th. Your difference in percentages is for those who do not know. As it stands, Washington has a 48.1% chance at a top 4 pick and a 10.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. Should Utah and Washington flip places, Washington would drop from 48.1% to have a top 4 pick to 42.1% and go from a chance to get the number 1 overall pick at 12.5% down to 10.5%. So your goal here, to what you're talking about, this whole time has obviously been to tank to get the best opportunity at a top pick. And yet you decide to roll out Trae Young against the one opponent you probably should not beat. And that would be the Utah Jazz, who are directly behind you right now.
It's just, what are you going to do?
Hey,
it's just ridiculous.
I'm excited to watch it, though.
Sure.
I mean, when you said, I got it wrong because I said it. I was like, he's not going to play. There's no reason for him to play. They know what they're going to do here. But sure enough, we saw this open pick. We're up to 4.5 now in favor of Washington. Total 241.5. Injury report is obviously going to be very important here. Utah Jazz playing on the second leg of a back-to-back, as we have already noted. And Keontae George is not going to play today after all of that, as we talked about. That was expected. That's why we're up to this point. Trae Young news was, we knew about that. The question was just going to be, what was the rest of the injury report going to look like here for Utah? And George not playing is what ultimately got you here to this 4.5 point mark.
Also, the Dallas Mavericks at Magic tonight. Cooper Flag expected to be back, was upgraded to doubtful against the Hornets, did not play, now upgraded to questionable. So if we're reading the tea leaves, does that mean he'll go? Yeah.
So I took a chance here. I don't really love today, so I can feel it just like the other day where I feel like I'm going to get my teeth kicked in. Not the best of the number. I took 8.5. I figured it would go down. It's 9. I expect that when Cooper Flag's officially activated, this is going to come back down to the range where I'm at, 8.5, maybe even 8. You said it. Look, if you're reading the tea leaves, he was out, upgraded to doubtful the previous game. Now he's questionable. They're going to let him play at some point. So I think there's two angles to watch here today. First off, just that if he plays, that number is going to come back down a little bit. Orlando has been playing well as of late. If you remember the last time we really talked about him in depth, it was last Thursday. They were taking on Houston. They were 2.5-point dogs. I had them. They were up 18. They blew the lead. They ended up not covering the game. The Magic have played okay over the last month or so. But if you really dive into it, they've only covered consecutive games about once in the last month. You know, they're stringing together some stretches here and there, but they're not a dominant force. I don't really fear going against them. Kid's a very good coach, should have a pretty decent game plan defensively to stymie an offense, which is very below average still, especially in half-court settings. And with the addition of Flagg, that got me here on the side of Dallas. But the other aspect that we should watch here today, remember when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander came back? And he was about $1.35 to win MVP. Yeah. And just the announcement that he was back, that number went right back up. I'm going to be very curious to see what the market does with Rookie of the Year when and if Cooper Flagg is announced as active, and after this game, depending on what he does. Because I said this to Mitch on Pod of the Future, so you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. If you don't have anything on Cooper Flagg, or if you don't have anything on Con Knipple, it might behoove you to just wait to see what the market does with this game and with this performance, because they might just flip it back.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if it'll be that extreme, because Knipple's like, what, $1.80 now or something like that? So maybe it's not going to be that extreme, but we will see. But if Flagg gets activated, and let's just say he comes in and has like 35 against Orlando, there's a good opportunity that number on Knipple's is going to get a lot cheaper really quickly.
Yeah, he's minus 180 right now. Cooper Flagg plus 145. And to your point on the MVP, Shai out to minus 270 now, where things sit right now since he's returned to the lineup. How about that jacket yesterday? He and Aaron Andrews would be best friends.
Yeah, what was that?
It's just a big one. And the whole neck had like the whole...
That's what I didn't listen to the audio, but I was like, can he talk? Can you hear him?
Okay, we'll get to the good teams a little bit later on, because I want to continue with some of these tanking situations.
Yeah.
You have the Heat against the Nets today, the Suns against the Bulls, Pelicans in an interesting situation against the Kings. DeJounte Murray out, Zion Williamson and Trey Murphy both questionable. Yeah. So what do you do with that? Any other ones that I'm missing?
So yeah, I think you pretty much hit them all. You can consider Orlando against Dallas. I know I have them, but obviously Dallas doesn't really want to win these games. So your opportunities today, if you're just going straight play against the tanking teams, would be Orlando. It would be Miami. It would be Phoenix, potentially, who's playing Chicago. They're 10.5-point favorites.
I love that one. I hate the Bulls.
And New Orleans, as you mentioned, among them. Could you consider Houston to be added to that? Now, Golden State is not a tanking team per se, and Houston has a lot of questionables today, but Golden State just isn't good. And Steph Curry is not playing, among some others. So would you just be comfortable going and saying, yeah, I'll just add them to the moneyline parlay, because you trust Houston enough against some of these bad teams that they'll at least be able to get it done against 8.5. But keep an eye on it. Let me see the most recent report, because they update these every 15 minutes now. At last look, Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson, both questionable to play for Houston. Let's see. And Jabari Smith Jr., all three still questionable. So keep an eye on that. You could be in a scenario where you put him as part of a moneyline parlay now, and then two of the three, all three of them, get ruled out for whatever reason, and you're sitting on a pretty expensive moneyline parlay, when the reality is the number's going to be a little bit shorter for you.
And with that, like I said, the Bulls and Suns one too, I've been fading the Bulls actively, and pretty much any moneyline parlay, even if it's like a multi-sport one,
sure,
I'm just throwing whoever's playing the Bulls that day in it as well. Reminder, everybody, no reason to pay full price at the pump right now as you're making your commute each and every day. Listen to us in your car. The free Upside app will give you real cash back every time you buy gas. You can download Upside and start earning on any day fill-ups. Promo code SPORTS will get you 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank as well. Upside users earning hundreds of bucks every year just by driving like they normally do. You can also cash out whenever you want, straight to your bank account, or if you want to do popular gift cards like Amazon, you can get started now with the free app. Promo code SPORTS. Offers vary by user and location. See upside.com for details. When we come back and get back into a little college basketball action, excited to have our good buddy Tim Murray join the program. He, like Greg, like a lot of the people that we've had on the program this week, part of the Circa College Hoops Challenge. And I mentioned this off the top of the show. He, like us, pays a lot of attention to the Mountain West Conference. Is the Mountain West a one-bid league after what transpired last night? Yeah, well, that's supposed to be a tease, JVT. You're not just supposed to say yes.
Well, it's an obvious question and answer.
We'll be back. Tim Murray coming up after this on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
on Money Moves, Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Lots of college basketball conference tournament action already underway. The Sun Belt, Summit League, Patriot League, OVC. Then the first rounds beginning today in the West Coast, Missouri Valley, Metro Atlantic as well. And we're going to cover all of our bases, including some conference tournaments that haven't tipped off just yet. As Tim Murray joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, host of VSiN Primetime Weeknights, 7 Eastern, VSiN Weekend Morning Line as well on Saturdays, and another member of the Circa College Hoops Challenge. And Tim, for everything that's already underway, I want to ask you about another conference that's near and dear to our hearts in the Mountain West. And this is a league that, 4 teams to the dance each of the last 4 years, 7 in a row with multiple bids. And then we get some of these results the back end of the season. New Mexico loses to CSU last night, who's been on the bubble. SDSU falls to Boise State. Utah State, even, who's supposed to be like the leader in the clubhouse of all this, loses at UNLV on Tuesday. Does this have one bid league written all over it this year for the first time in a long time?
I don't think Utah State is going to do enough to fall out, but getting blown out by UNLV is certainly not helpful. It certainly feels like Utah State and then whoever wins this conference tournament. So is it a one bid league? I think if Utah State wins this conference tournament, it certainly will be. As you mentioned, New Mexico, look, I ended up taking the points with Colorado State last night, but I didn't think they'd absolutely go into the pit and destroy them like they did. Yeah. So, yeah, it is a conference that I'm sure you guys have talked about, and JVT knows this conference better than most, where I think there's got to be a fun opportunity to bet this conference tournament from a future standpoint, because it does feel like a team like UNLV could either lose in the first round or win the whole damn thing, right? So I think the Mountain West, it's a bit frustrating for me personally, because I have a ticket on Santa Clara to miss the NCAA tournament, guys, at plus 130. But with the Mountain West not looking like a multi-bid league, that could hurt my chances to cash that ticket. But it's actually going to be a fun conference tournament, I think, once we get the seedings figured out, to see, hey, who's got the best path, looking at some of these matchups and the fact that a team like UNLV had swept Utah State. Is it just a bad matchup for the Aggies against a team like UNLV? So I think it's going to be a fun one once we get that bracket and once we get those prices, guys. But to answer your initial question, I still think if Utah State doesn't win the conference, Stormy, I think it's a multi-bid league. But if the Aggies win it, it does feel like right now it is going to be a one-bid league.
Yep. Before we move on, too, I'll just point out a team that you might want to watch in the Mountain West Conference, a team that has won 8 straight and is very quietly a top 50 offense in the country. Colorado State, who's coming on really strong here to end the season. We've just watched them beat New Mexico. Tim, let's go to just today really quickly. I know there's not a ton on the card with some depth to it, but I believe Rutgers out in Piscataway was one of the teams that you were looking at.
Yeah, I mean, Rutgers, not a team that's having a good year by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you look at a couple of these bottom feeders in the Big Ten this year, guys, and they have just been dreadful. And look, you're talking to a guy that tried to bet Penn State yesterday, and that was thankfully you don't lose more money when a team loses by like 45 points, because they got absolutely annihilated yesterday. But I look at Rutgers going to East Lansing. They're catching like 20.5 at some shops right now. Michigan State's got Michigan on deck on Sunday. It's senior day, so that's always, you kind of play how it's going to ultimately, unfold here. You can make the point that, Tom Izzo will probably have his team ready to go, considering Rutgers probably should have beat them when these two teams played back in late January. But you think back to that was a look-ahead spot. They were at Rutgers. They played poorly, and then shortly thereafter, they played Michigan. So I do think, from a situational standpoint, you might be able to get Rutgers as a enormous dog here. So the one play I have on the card so far today is Rutgers. On the flip side, guys, Iowa is playing Michigan. Iowa's at home, and that's going to be our primetime game of the night, which we'll discuss throughout the evening tonight. I just have worries about the size of Iowa. Like, could, Bennett Sturts go off and have a massive game at home? Certainly possible, but the reason I haven't bet Iowa, guys, is just I'm concerned about the size, the lack of size there for the Hawkeyes against Michigan. So normally that would be a game that I would gravitate towards taking Iowa plus the points, and we'll see how the night unfolds. But when you look at this Michigan team and the sheer size that they have down low, guys, I have a hard time envisioning Iowa being able to keep this thing competitive. So I'll take an even uglier dog. I'll take the boys from Piscataway plus, I think there's a 20.5 out there in the market right now. So give me Rutgers plus almost 3 touchdowns against Michigan State.
There's another ugly dog that you haven't bet yet, but have been contemplating. And so let's talk about it. You got USF riding a 7-game win streak into Memphis, who's on a 6-game skid, and you lean toward the home dog Tigers. Why?
Yeah. All right. So I haven't gotten here yet. And here's why, because there's a really, really, really good chance Memphis is completely checked out on the season. If you look at what they've done lately, to go to East Carolina and lose by 16 as a 5-point favorite, that should not happen. Memphis, you could argue from top to bottom, guys, is probably the most talented team in this conference. And they should be. They're the most well-resourced team in this conference. They shouldn't have years like they're having. And, you've seen Penny Hardaway get emotional after games, whether it was the Utah State game or, recently this week saying, I'm not going to quit. There's rumors about whether or not he should be fired. All of that put into this. And you've got the best team in the conference in South Florida coming in to play this Memphis team. This is one of those situations, and JVT, you and I used to do this all the time, where it's like, all right, let's look at what the point spread was the first time they played and what it is now. So the first time they played, this number was like 8.5, 9 in favor of South Florida at home, and now you're getting close to 7. That said, late in the year, with a team that has not gotten anywhere near their expectations, a team that was a 5 seed last year in the NCAA tournament, and now you're losers of 7 straight, have you just quit on the season? So I do worry that this team is on full-on quit watch, but like from a number standpoint, the fact that Memphis is now catching 7 at home against South Florida when, entering this year, these were probably the 2 best teams on paper in this conference. So I haven't bet it yet. I don't know if I'm going to want to bang my head against the wall, but I wouldn't be surprised come later tonight if I take a little nibble on Memphis as a 7-point home dog here against South Florida.
All right, I want to go a little forward here for our contest. Obviously, we're going to use Saturdays and some of the lines. I expect that Duke will be a popular selection depending on the number. Tim, I'm going to line up to do it depending on what it lines up to be. But what do you make of Duke and North Carolina? I mean, since this 7-game winning streak has gone on after they lost to UNC, they're winning these games by 23.4 points per game. They're crushing these fools.
Yeah, and I think, it was funny because I was looking at my futures portfolio, guys, this week, and, I've got a good number on Florida, not so good number on Illinois. That's tripped it back a little bit, but that's pretty much it when you look at some of the top dogs. I don't have Arizona, I don't have Michigan, and I don't have Duke. And I was like, should I get one of those big dogs in the portfolio heading into the tournament, or do I wait and see what the bracket ultimately ends up being? The one of those 3 that I would buy would be Duke. And, you look at Duke defensively, guys, they're the best defense in the country. And, you look at the sheer size, as I mentioned, of Michigan, Arizona's gigantic down low, and certainly Florida is as well. But then you look at this Duke team, man, and to your point, JVT, I think the Michigan game really, to say it impressed me is understating it, right? You're on a neutral against a Michigan team that's elite and you beat them, but the way they won it, the way you were able to grind it out. But going ahead to Saturday, the question is that number, man. And, KenPom, I think, projects it at like 16 right now. It's clearly a revenge spot. I believe Caleb Wilson has a chance to return. That's the reports today for North Carolina. But, man, you're thinking about at Cameron Indoor, revenge spot, how well they have been playing. It would be hard for me, guys, to take the points with UNC. And look, earlier this week, I thought it was a slam spot to take NC State, catching 9.5 at home against Duke. Duke had UNC on deck, just came off the Virginia win. NC State went up to South Bend and lost embarrassingly to Notre Dame. And NC State was never in that game. It was 18-18, and I think Duke went on like a 41-17 run. So it is hard right now to get in front of this freight train. And to your point, JVT, I imagine when I'm talking about the picks on Saturday morning, yeah, there will be a number of folks laying the chalk with Duke, and I wouldn't blame them considering everything that goes into that game to wrap up the regular season there for the Blue Devils.
Tim, appreciate you joining us, and we'll try to get you on a day with some better games next time. You're the best.
2 Thursdays from now, there's some good games, so we could do that. Right?
Yeah, every day now.
There we go. Tim Murray, everybody. Again, make sure you check him out tonight. VSiN primetime beginning at 7 Eastern. And like he mentioned, the game of the night that they'll be tracking, doing lots of live betting angles, Michigan, Iowa. We got to step aside here on Money Moves, but when we come back, we will continue our MLB preview series and back-to-back days in the NFL. We've seen some big name players on the move. Buffalo getting a new toy for Josh Allen earlier this morning. Our thoughts on the compensation for DJ Moore. Plus, what Chicago might want to do with that freed up cap space as well. Stick around. VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.